David Andrews, nicknamed Ronnie. Is that from that Essendon thug that used to play at centre-half back for the Bombers?
Yeah, it was, Butters. Basically how I got it, when I was playing for Richmond, I followed the Bombers, of course. When I played footy, I wore number 4. And basically, same name, Andrews, it stuck, Ronnie. So basically I've had that since 1983, I think.
It's interesting nicknames because we were just talking a little bit before. All Taylors are Squizzy, all Andrews are Ronnie.
Ronnie, exactly. Well, especially all the Victorian ones.
Yeah. You mentioned Richmond. I'm going to call you Ronnie. I'm not going to call you David because no one calls you David. But you mentioned Richmond, Ronnie. You came up from Richmond playing cricket with Richmond and you came up to Darwin about 1988, if I recall.
Yeah, that's right.
And probably fly in, fly out for 2 or 3 years. How did it all come about?
Well, basically we were travelling around Australia and one of my mates was playing up here, Gerard Clark, who played at the Tigers as well. And basically he was up here and I didn't know, so we sort of met, I think, down at Carlin Oval. And then basically that's the way we went from there.
Before we get to Northern Territory cricket and Darwin Cricket Club in particular, do you still take an interest in district cricket in Melbourne, or is that those sort of days gone?
Oh, every now and then I'll have a look, especially if I know somebody who's playing there. No, especially if one of the lads is playing from Darwin down in Melbourne, I'll have a look and just see how he's travelling along.
Right. Now you produced a couple of boys. One can play cricket and one can't play all that well. But the one that can play cricket, you must be proud of him.
Oh yeah, I think so, yeah. No, look, he worked very hard, you know, he was always interested in cricket and we used to play in the backyard and basically ever since then he's just loved the game and just kept playing it, and I gave him a few coaching tips and he took it on board and you know, more so I think a lot of his mates were playing cricket as well, like Jake, Pat Pies or William Hetherington. A lot of those guys were playing cricket down at Carlin, so you know I was privileged to basically have a group like that down there. So they were best mates, and you know they sort of, I think it was pretty competitive that, you know, like one was performing, the other wanted to perform, so it just sort of pushed them along and along and along.
The Jake that you mentioned, of course, is Jake Weatherald, and he plays for the Redbacks, as does Tom. So they've played their cricket from Darwin, under 13s, under 15s?
Yeah, basically it was have-a-go cricket from under 11s. Greg Bicknell had them then at under 11s, and then they sort of followed through and I jumped on.
When did you take over coaching?
Oh, I think it would have probably been when I helped Greg out the under 11s, but it was his show. So basically when they got to under 13s, I basically.
And what about coaching your son? And did you see something in him? Rumour has it that he wanted to be a fast bowler, but you said no. Be a little bit more sedate.
Well, I don't think he was ever going to be fast enough. But my theory was if you're not fast enough, bowl spin.
Okay.
But what it did teach him was to bowl seam up, and then you could use that in your spin bowling as an arm ball. So I did the same as a kid. So I bowled medium pace, and then I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to be quick. Yeah. So I thought, well, why not turn to spin?
So did you think that, or did you have advice?
On myself?
Yeah.
No, I basically thought it was all too hard to bowl fast. So I thought, you know, I'll still have that aggression, but I can bowl spin.
Right.
But I was a batsman then anyway, so I sort of bowled part-time, and then sort of the bowling took over from the batting. And
Ronnie, you coached at junior level and probably did a little bit of coaching, mentoring at senior level, but all of a sudden you upped stumps and went to India. What was that all about?
Well, it's a long story, that, Butters, because first of all, Sean Williams, who I rate as one of the best coaches in Australia, a fantastic coach, professional coach. So I went over there and he was coaching for Maharashtra, and I went over there just as basically to have a look around. I think Australia were playing India. So Sean sort of jumped on board and we went to a few places around India, watched the Aussies. And then I went back, and basically probably 6 months later, there was a job advertised as junior director of cricket at Maharashtra. So
where's Maharashtra?
Basically Mumbai is the capital, so it's on the west coast, about halfway up.
Okay, anyway, yep.
Yeah, and where I was based in Pune, which is probably 150 k's inland in the Western Ghats, which was a nice area to be, good decent climate. Yeah, so basically Sean said, look, there's a job going, why don't you have a crack? There's a few other people. So I had a crack at it, and then I spoke to my wife, of course, first, and we used to sit up in the backyard, because the process was I applied for the job, then that was probably 3 months before I heard anything. So we used to go up in the backyard and have a few beers and sort of talk about it, and she'd go, "What are you going to do?" And I'm going, "Well, I reckon I'm probably 52% I'd go," and she said, "Look, go for it."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so the whole family were going to come, but Annie was going to come basically. I went in I think it was the August, and Annie come in the following February with the two lads.
That's Tom and Will.
Yeah. So I got the job, and basically I remember Sean rang me, he said, "You've got an interview." So I'd had a few beers, and I thought, God. So the interview was about 5 minutes, and they just said, "What do you do?" So I just reeled it off, and basically then I got a phone call back, "Can you fly over?" So I flew over and basically signed the contract, and then come back, and then left probably 2 or 3 weeks later.
Ronnie, we hear about players making sacrifices, and your son Tom's one of them. What about coaches? And I've always wondered that you've made the sacrifice, if it was in fact a sacrifice, to go to India to coach, to learn and to develop and extend your coaching. Did you ever have aspirations to coach in Australia at high level? Was that sort of part of what you saw was a pathway?
Well, what I saw was the opportunity over there to go there and be in a different environment, being with a fantastic coach in Sean, and seeing how I develop. I was never ambitious about coaching. I always liked working with kids and to try to make them better as a cricketer and better as people. Yep. And basically, if you work in that environment, I think you're going to go very well because they respect you and you can respect them back. So basically, it just went on from there. The first year I did the under-16s, we won it. The second year we come runners-up. Then I got moved up to the under-19s with that group. The first year we lost the final, and then the second year we won the final. So after that I was thinking, and then Sean decided to leave India and come back to it. I think got a job at the Red Packs by then, and basically I was next in line. So I got a call from the boss when I was back in Australia. He said, "You want the job as a Ranji coach?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" So I did that the first year, which was good. I had no issues or ambitions in that either. I just went about doing the same way. I think the senior coaching over there is a bit of a poison chalice where you're on a hiding to nothing and you just got to keep winning. Yeah. So the first year we made the semi-final of the Ranji Trophy, which is a big deal. I've never seen anything like media and everything. So I'm sitting there doing interviews in front of 50 people. With cameras and asking me questions and stuff. That's no problem. So that was good. We come up against some pretty good players in the semi-final, test players, and they made 200. But I think we only dipped out by about 80 runs that game, and the season was over. So basically, next year we had a bit of a shocker. I saw certain players in the team that weren't good enough, and I wanted to change them over and get some of the blokes that I'd coached in there. And that didn't go down too well at all. So that basically was the beginning of the end for me. So 7 years, I was happy, I achieved what I wanted to. It would have been nice to win a Ranji Trophy because they're like, they're gold to win. They're very rare because it's 28-team competition. You've got to be on the top of your game. So.
And the family, you say you went across, and Annie came across after you, and the boys probably came across later. Tom left to sort of pursue his career. Did Will stay with you?
Yeah, he stayed. He stayed there. Went to school over there, international school, and then basically went down to the local club, Cadence Cricket Club, and went on some of their. I think he was under 14s. He was playing then, so he went on there. It's called the Invitation League. So you basically could go out in whoop 300 k's away in a bus, that's probably that big, with 20 players and a coach, and no worries with him. I really admire him for him. He just went out there and he performed well, but I think he just enjoyed the cricket side of it. Just playing cricket in India, in whoop whoop when basically nobody spoke English. Yeah. But it's funny, Butters. Cricket brings every culture together, regardless of where you're from. And they both loved it. Both loved it.
Before we finish with India, any one highlight?
I think it probably would have been the under-19 grand final we won at home with a good crowd, and because it's always playing Mumbai is like Essendon playing Collingwood.
Is Mumbai the home of Sachin?
Yeah. Always strong, always really competitive, but to beat them quite comfortable was a highlight.
Even at under 19 level?
Yeah, even at under 19. It was fantastic. Yeah, the boys went really well. Yeah, it was great. You know, just to be part of that culture. You know, I love the Indian culture. It's, you know, it's 3,000 years old. And to survive over there, one thing that I always, because I'd been there before twice as a backpacker. I went with Darwin Cricket Club in '99. We played some games there. But to survive, you have to understand their culture, which is massively complicated. So I had to read about it, and then I had to put some of that, what I'd read and the culture that I'd known, to relate to them as people, and it worked.
Oh, nice.
Because if you do that, say, you know, I respect some of your gods, because I used to talk about their gods. You know, like you have Ganesh and Shiva, and I'd talk about their gods and how they become and the process and all that. And they respect you for that, taking interest in their culture. So that, I think that broke down a lot of walls.
What about the language?
Well, most of them speak English.
Right.
A few of the rural kids can read English, so I used to write notes.
Have you been back?
No, I haven't.
Have you? Will you go back?
Oh, I think I'll go back one day and have a reunion with all the players. I still keep in contact with a lot of them. They're fantastic, you know. So that they're always interested in what you do now and stuff like that. And I'm always interested in how they're going. I always check on them, where they are with their cricket. And then
India over, come back to Australia. You're now out of the club scene, got a business. Do you still take an interest in cricket in the Northern Territory and the Darwin Cricket Club in particular?
yeah, well, I probably don't go down there as much as I can, but I always take interest in their scores and all that sort of stuff, and the stuff that's on NT Cricket. Always tick on that like to make sure we beat whoever, regardless if it's live or not. Yeah, no, definitely, Butters, yeah.
And finally, Ronnie, what about people that, as you did, made a sacrifice and your family came along for the ride, and you obviously worked very closely with Annie, your wife, and the boys. What about people that dare to make the sacrifice? Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. Do you sort of admire that? Do you have a crack?
Yeah, I think just have a crack, but as Andy said, you're always a risk taker, Ronnie. Regardless of what you do, I don't take as much risk now that I'm older, but you know, I saw it as a challenge and as an adventure.
Yep.
That was it, you know. The cricket probably, yeah, that's great, but that's sort of all mixed into one. You know, I'm going to India, I'll live over there, and look, you know, it was no regrets at all.
And NT cricket at the moment, you can't compare cricket in India to Northern Territory cricket, I suppose, but the initiatives taken by Northern Territory cricket, Strike League and those sorts of things, do you sort of see that as being the start of something big, or do we just need a billion people before we become like India?
Yeah, I think people's important. But, you know, like there's been a hell of a lot of good cricketers that have come from here, Butters. You know, even when I was playing just club cricket, there was a lot of really good cricketers. And look, I think there's massive opportunities up here. You play in the off-season. You know, you're never washed out. You're always playing on decent wickets. And if you're down south there and you want to come up here, I think this is the perfect place like I did. You know, I've just met so many long-term friends from playing cricket up here, from, you know, every club right across the board, yeah.
Ronnie Andrews, great to catch up with you.
Pleasure, Butters, as always.